second. Right now, I'm gonna share my screen. Make sure I got my computer sound as well. There we go. All right, and then this is where the view in Zoom gets all wonky, but that is okay. So I'm gonna turn this on with captions for accessibility. And Tiffany, I don't know if you're recording this, but you guys did have permission
Yes.
to do that if you want to. So,
Yes, thank
okay,
you. We are recording.
cool. All right, so I'm gonna move this guy out of the way here. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Hello. So welcome to this session on mindfulness practices for young children. Like I said, my name is Katie. I'm really, really grateful to be having the opportunity to spend some time with you all today to go over this topic. So, since this is a session on mindfulness, we're going to begin by actually taking a few minutes to practice some mindful breathing ourselves. So, I'm going to guide us through that. I encourage you to scoot forward if you're sitting in a chair. Um, so that your back can be free of the backrest. When we have our back on the backrest, it's really easy to just kind of get this slump in our spine. So when we scoot forward, that can help us just keep the spine nice and tall. So you can think about it of just embodying this very dignified seat. Allow the legs to be uncrossed, feet on the floor. If it feels good, if there's any wiggles that your body needs, maybe rolling the shoulders a bit or the neck a little, you can do that just to kind of free up your body to get to a place where you can be still in your seat for a few minutes. It's up to you whether you'd like eyes to be open or closed, whatever you're most comfortable with. If they're open, just kind of take a soft gaze where you're not really looking at anything in particular. And I'm going to allow my eyes to close. And we'll begin first just by finding the breath in the body. So, what this means is just be curious and notice where it is that you can physically feel your body breathing. So, for some people, they might find that sensation of air coming in and out of the nostrils. Other people might really connect with the feeling of the belly slightly rising and falling with each inhale and exhale. There's not a right or wrong here. The invitation simply is just to find your breath in your body. And then for the next several minutes, we're going to do our best to allow the awareness to stay with this experience. Just noticing what you feel and where you feel it with each inhale and each exhale. And it won't be long at all before you start to notice how easily the mind is pulled off into all kinds of different things. Our to-do list, wondering, am I doing this right? Some sound that we heard, something that feels good, something that doesn't feel good, blah, 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 blah. This does not mean that you are doing anything wrong. It just means that you are a human person with a human brain. And this is what brains do. So the trick with mindfulness is that each time that we notice that we've been pulled away from our object of focus, from clearly noticing what we feel and where we feel it, just as we breathe in and breathe out, paying attention to those inhales and exhales. Each time that we're pulled away by something, we notice that. And then very, very gently, kind of imagine taking a small child by the hand, that level of gentleness. Invite your awareness to come back to noticing the breath. And if you have to do this over and over and over and over again, you're doing it just right. You're doing it just fine. So let's enjoy together a few more quiet moments of mindfully breathing in this way. Enjoy one more breath in this way, fully noticing the inhale. And at the bottom of your exhale, if the eyes have been closed, you're invited to softly blink them back open. Take in your surroundings. So going forward from here, I will be sharing with you a few more mindfulness practices, but they aren't going to be in the way that you just experienced them. So I just led a mindful practice for adults, for you guys. But going forward, I'll kind of switch into that teacher, librarian, presenter mode, and lead you through these mindfulness practices as though I were leading them to a group of preschoolers. So that will give you the opportunity to, kind of see what modifications we make when we're leading moments of mindfulness for a young audience, and also with the kind of language that I try to encourage people to use in those practices. So I still very much encourage you when those moments come to practice along with me, and still just be curious, noticing what it is that you notice for yourself as a human person, and also noticing where it really lands with you or sticks out to you in terms of things that you want to take away if you're thinking about implementing some of these ideas into your work with young kids. So this is what I want to do right here. There we go. Excellent. Okay. All right. So what are the goals for our time here together? Mindfulness it's a lifelong practice. I've personally been practicing, I've been practicing yoga for over 15 years. But I've really been a mindfulness practitioner for just over a decade. And I'm still a student of these practices. So it's never something that we get to just like check off like, oop, I'm mindful now, yay. It's an ongoing, forever kind of a practice. it's kind of the same way, physical exercise, it's not like I'm fit now, I don't ever have to exercise again, that kind of thing. So, we aren't going to cover everything in an hour, right? So we're really narrowing down on a few key goals. I want you all, I'm hoping, that you all will come away from today's session with a deeper understanding of what mindfulness actually is. And I'm hope that you will leave understanding what it really has to offer. So what it has to offer to young children and the families that you serve, what it has to offer um, to you as professionals who are working with young children and with families, and also some really practical ideas around how to incorporate mindfulness into your work with young kids, and just some exposure to what that would to what that would look like. So a little bit about me. I am a former children's librarian. I don't work in a library any longer, but I still identify very, very, very strongly with the library profession. You can clearly see that my affinity for picture books has not gone anywhere. So, librarianship absolutely is my home. Um, but I work independently, so I'm an independent consultant and run my own business, and I've been doing that since 2012. I'm also a yoga and mindfulness teacher, and I specialize in teaching to young children. Although in the last several years that has shifted a little bit, as I founded Story Songs and Stretches. So Story Songs and Stretches is it's an early learning initiative, and it's all about being very intentional in the use of movement and mindfulness to enhance school readiness and to also help buffer against the negative effects of trauma experiences for preschool age kids. So now I mostly work with adults, teaching adults how to teach these things to young kids, which means that I get to share yoga and mindfulness with a lot of folks who are brand new to those practices, which is always my absolute favorite. It's such an honor. Like anytime someone tells me like, um, you know, I've never done yoga before, I'm just like, oh, yes, yes, yes. It's good. It's just such an honor to work with beginners for me. Anyway, sidetrack there. I've published some books with ALA. So Story Songs and Stretches is a book that was published in 2017 by ALA. I'm also co-author with Jamie Campbell Naidu of Once Upon a Cuento, bilingual story times in English and Spanish. And so if any of you recognize my name, it's probably from um, some workshops that I did for South Carolina a couple years ago on that topic. And I'm working on a third book for ALA that's going to be about embedding trauma-informed mindfulness into library services to children. So that'll be out in a while. It is coming, but it'll be a minute. COVID, right? Oh my goodness, everything got twisted up. I'm also the mom to a 3-year-old. So guess what that means? It means I get to practice what I teach on a regular basis all the time. And Jon Kabat-Zinn, who I'll talk about in a minute, he describes like becoming a parent as like having a live-in guru for the next 18 years that will never let you take a break from your practice. And so in a lot of ways, she really truly is my best my best teacher. So here's our first practice for young kids. And this is a sound practice. And so this is where I'm going to kind of switch gears as though, I'm talking to a room full of preschoolers. So, hey, friends, welcome. So glad to see you all today. We are going to take a couple of moments to share a mindfulness practice together. So let's say that word together, mindfulness. Yeah, so mindfulness is learning how to pay attention to just one thing at a time. It sounds really easy, right? But it can be a little bit tricky. So we're going to experiment with that. And I'm going to use my cool bell. This is called a singing bowl. I brought this with me today to help us with our mindfulness practice. So in a couple of moments, I will begin making some sound with my bell. And you are invited to let your body be still and quiet and just really notice the sound that you hear and how it changes until you can't hear the sound anymore. And as we do this, you might find that your body wants to wiggle or your mind wants to giggle, and that's totally normal. But we're going to really try to just keep coming back to listening to the sound, and we'll have a chance to talk about what that was like when our mindfulness practice is over. So, you guys ready? All right, here we go. So, before we move on from that um, practice, I just want to point out a couple of key things um, about that experience. So as I said in the introduction to that practice, and I do say this for kids, mindfulness invites us to pay attention to just one thing at a time. So in this case, what we were paying attention to was the sound that we were hearing. Um, so previously we were paying, when we did our practice as adults, we were paying attention to our breath, right? Feeling each inhale and feeling each exhale. In this practice, we were paying attention to the sound and just noticing that raw experience of hearing sound as it is. So I really encourage you, to actually use the word mindfulness with kids and define it in a very simple way, and then that way, uh, not only the children, but also any adults in the room, parents, caregivers, teachers, daycare staff, understand what it is that you're doing, how you're doing it, um, and and you can even talk about why you're doing it too. So when we learn how to pay attention to one thing at a time, we're teaching our brain ways to stay calm. And so that's why we're going to do this practice, something along those lines. So some of you might be thinking like, yeah, right. You don't know my kids, lady. They're all going to be grabbing for that bell, and you know they're all going to be moving around all over the place. Blah 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 blah. I get it. I get it. I do. But I, of course kids are going to be kids, and we want to honor that, and expect that and anticipate that. Um, this is a very different way of being, right? Um, so we can learn how to very gently invite kids to keep coming back to the moment. Yeah, that sound is really loud. Let's go back to listening. And there's a lot about your tone and how you hold the space and how you communicate with kids, that kind of, it just sets a tone for how they will participate. So yes, expect kids to be kids. No, we don't need to like harshly discipline them or shush them or whatever if being quiet and still is difficult for them, especially as they're first exposed to practices like these. Um, and if you tell kids that you're going to do something at the end, like I said, we'll make time to talk about what that experience is like when it's over. Make sure that you do actually hold true to that. And kids will surprise you sometimes. I've walked into classrooms of 30 kids that I have never met before and done that exact same practice. And as that bell comes to a close, it's just that. And they're right there. They're paying attention. They're with you. They're practicing mindfulness with you. So sometimes they'll surprise you in the most wonderful ways. So, what is mindfulness exactly, and why should we consider implementing it into our work with young kids? What benefit does it have to offer? So first, let's just pause for a definition. Some of you, this might be a little bit of a repeat if you were with me a couple of weeks ago. The word mindfulness, it really gets thrown around a lot in our I don't know, just in our cultural milieu, like I'm being mindful of blah, 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 blah. So it's good to pause for a definition. And the definition that I like to work with comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction. And this definition is paying attention in a particular way. And the particular way is on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. So mindfulness is a skill. It's something that we have to intentionally make time to practice. It doesn't just spontaneously arise. When we are practicing mindfulness, we're training our awareness to be fully in the present moment. So when you think about kind of what your default setting is, for most of us, our default setting is mental time travel, right? We're either rehashing something from the past or we're planning something for the future. Even if we're like, doing, I mean, I am not immune to this, y'all, not in any way. Okay. Like I am not sitting up on some pedestal, like, here's what I am bestowing upon you. Oh, no, 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 no. Like I said, student first, I catch myself being there, right, in my interactions with my 3-year-olds. We're coloring, we're measuring stuff, we're whatever, and I'm there, but I'm also like 15 other places at the same time, um, and so with mindfulness, we're training our brains in this very purposeful way to come fully to the present moment by paying attention to one thing. I usually call this an anchor. So our anchor might be the breath, our anchor might be sound, but it's something that is right here and right now. And we're with it without judgment, which means that we're just being curious. You can think of curiosity as the opposite of judgment. So um, instead of um, judging, I like this, I don't like this is good, this is bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm such a great meditator, I'm terrible at meditating, blah, 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 blah. We just, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? There's that thought again. I sure love to tell myself what a great mindfulness practitioner I am, don't I? That's interesting. And over time you start to learn a lot about yourself through these various patterns and whatnot. So that's the definition of what mindfulness is. We're being in the present moment on purpose, allowing the experience to be what it is without trying to change it. So simple definition, but not necessarily easy to practice. So to understand how mindfulness benefits young children, let's talk a little bit about the brain. When the brain is calm, it's primed for learning. When it's stressed, it's not. This applies to all of us, as our brains are designed primarily to keep us safe and to prioritize our survival above everything else. So let's break this down a little bit. As we move throughout our life, we're constantly bombarded by sensory input, right? So that's over there on the left of this graphic. Before we have any conscious awareness of that sensory input, all right, so before we're aware that we see the light turn on, before we're aware that we hear the crack of a twig, whatever it is, that sensory input has first been scanned by a part of our brain called the amygdala to look for signs of danger or threats. This can be a real, immediate danger right now, or it can be something that is perceived as dangerous based on our prior experiences. So if the amygdala does not detect any danger, then that sensory input is going to go on to the prefrontal cortex, which is where we have our executive functioning, we make plans, we make steps for how to carry out those plans, we can see the different choices that we have available to us and think through their consequences. That's where our empathy and consideration for others lives. So, that if our brain is not stressed and in this survival mode, then we can go into those higher levels of functioning and have a balanced response. However, if the amygdala does detect a threat, then it immediately goes into this stress response. And so that's a very physiological process. The way the blood flows in the body is going to change. The hormones that are being produced in our body are going to change. And the amygdala is going to basically take over and do what it does best, which is prepare our bodies for survival. So you may have heard of the fight, flight, or freeze response before. So that's what we can often see on the outside, but on the inside, like I said, this is very physiological. There are all these chemical changes and process changes that are happening as well. And when that happens, the prefrontal cortex, that area of the brain that we really need for learning, as well as the hippocampus, which is where our information that we've previously learned is stored, those areas of the brain are offline. We cannot access them. And they won't be able to come back on again until the amygdala perceives that threat has passed. So at a very basic level, it's clear that a calm brain is a learning brain, you know, and that kind of calm is necessary for learning, because if we are stuck in survival mode, those parts, there, it doesn't matter how creative your way of teaching ABCs and one, two, threes are. If a kid is stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze response, they just don't have a way to access that part of the brain. So over time, mindfulness practice can literally change the physical and physiological structure of the brain so that the prefrontal cortex grows stronger and the amygdala is less reactive to potential danger cues in sensory input that aren't actually a true threat in this current moment. So mindfulness wires the brain for calm, and calm sets us and young children up for success when it comes to learning. Further, mindfulness is one of several things that research has shown over and over again, that promotes neurogenesis, which is the development of new cells and new pathways in the brain, which is especially important for kids who have experienced or are experiencing trauma. Um, so, I mean, think of all the upheaval. We're living through a collective trauma right now. So these practices, and mindfulness is not the only thing, but it is one of several things that can help to heal those areas of the brain that change when we experience trauma. And that is true both for young children whose brains are still growing, in that 0 to 5 window, and also for adults. So think of the value to the adult caregivers that you might be serving, as well. So, mindfulness isn't some magic cure. It doesn't. There's a video that I like to show this as it's not going to magically make life unicorns and rainbows. It's a practice, and it takes time, for the different kinds of benefits, to show up, but it is something that we can do, to really help support both learning and healing from trauma. Mindfulness practice also supports social emotional development. It really helps in building self-awareness, because it invites us to notice our experience in the present moment as it is. So this means noticing things like our thoughts, noticing our emotions, noticing what those things feel like in our body, noticing how those things are connected to our behaviors. So we often, when we think about social emotional learning, we kind of jump to the self-management piece of that, which is how kids learn how to positively regulate their emotions. So, not hitting other kids or throwing a chair across the room or something like that if they're angry, but having another way to express their anger or calm themselves down. But self-awareness really truly is the foundation for all other social emotional development. We can't learn to manage our emotions without first being able to identify them, right? Know what they feel like, know when, kind of what would, some of those indicators, right? Those physical or mental indicators of, whoa, I'm getting angry. Um, We can't build positive relationships with others if we don't first feel safe and feel good about who we are, which is part of self-awareness. And we can't take the kinds of responsible risks that are necessary for learning new things if we don't first know what our strengths and our areas of growth actually are. So, mindfulness can help children to build all of these different components of self awareness. So, by regularly practicing mindfulness, children are invited to connect with their thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, and to learn that all of these things are impermanent. They come and they go, and they're constantly changing. Furthermore, the emotions that we experience, even the uncomfortable ones, are normal and universal. So everyone feels sad or angry or confused sometimes. But these feelings don't define us, right? They're not simply who we are. In fact, mindfulness practice can help us build strategies for regulating those strong feelings and to build compassion for the fact that others feel those same emotions too. So, all of this is very empowering and it helps to build resilience. So, yeah, things may happen that might, throw us for a loop emotionally, but we can learn how to respond to those events in ways that foster, um, growth and learning and connection. So I'm going to show you guys a video. I'm actually going to switch it over to YouTube to play it so that I can put on the captions. And it shows real kindergarten children who were taught mindfulness as part of their school curriculum. So as you watch this video, just notice what jumps out to you in terms of the kinds of self-awareness that that these children demonstrate. So I'm going to move away. You won't be able to see these questions, but just it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to answer. It's not like this is a quiz or something, but these are just kind of some things to have an ear out for. What kind of language and expressions do these children use to articulate their feelings, and what do they demonstrate about their understanding of how feelings and behaviors are connected? What do they demonstrate understanding about how their brains work, and what strategies do they know for how to regulate strong emotions? So if anybody so desires, if there's something that really stands out to you as an aha, or a big takeaway that you want to put up in the chat box as we watch this video, you're certainly welcome to do that. And just a kind of a housekeeping note, we're on Zoom, right? So video over video conferencing, it looks choppy. Expect that. The big thing is just to listen, which shouldn't be a problem. So noticing, really paying attention to what you hear, and try not to get too bothered by the choppiness of the video. The link to the video is in your handout, so you can come back and watch that anytime. So over here. This is always so funny because the Zoom thing is like right in the way. Get these captions on. Okay, here we go. Oops, sorry about that.
I get really mad when my brother hits me a lot.
I don't like it when you say you don't want to play with me.
When I'm mad, my brain can get a headache and it can start hurting. Your blood keeps pumping because you're like really mad. And you start to get sweaty because you're getting really, really mad. And then when you start getting really mad, you turn red. When your body can't really control yourself, mad just takes over your body. I just get out of control. It's kind of like if you had a jar and then the jar would be your brain and then you put glitter in the jar and that would be how you would feel like. If you shook up the jar and the glitter went everywhere, that would be how your mind looks. And it's like spinning around and then you don't have any time to think. And you sometimes punch stuff and people when you don't really mean it. When I get angry, I feel it in my heart. I really don't like when I get angry. The amygdala really reacts, but the prefrontal cortex tries to keep it down. When I feel like I want to, get really angry and yell, I just sometimes, take deep breaths. First you find a place where you can be alone, then you find some way to relax and calm down. When I need to calm down, I take deep breaths. I breathe in through my nose. Sometimes I close my eyes or just take deep breaths. It's coming down, it's not moving. It's slowing down and then it stops. And the heart pumps slow and then it goes into your brain. It's like all the sparkles are at the bottom of your brain. My brain slows down and then I feel more calm and then I'm ready to speak to that person.
So I love that video so much. It just really makes it clear to me that when we give kids these opportunities to build these skills, they really can run with them, and we should not be afraid of using big language like the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex with young kids. And the story of the video is really cool because, like I said, these are real kindergarteners that were getting mindfulness instruction in their school. And, one of the things that you may have noticed in how that video is put up is that information, those practices, they didn't just stay with the kids, right? They went home and they influenced the adults in their lives as well. And it turned out that the parents of one of the kids are professional filmmakers, and so they made this short film just to really show the impact that regular mindfulness practice was having, not just on their child, but within really their whole school community. So let's go ahead and do another practice. So I'm going to go ahead and switch gears back to my talking to preschoolers again. So, hi everybody. Let's take a couple of moments to notice what it feels like to feel our bodies breathe. So, if it feels okay to you, I invite you to let your hand rest on your belly. And let's just notice what we feel inside our belly and outside of our belly, underneath of our hand when we breathe in and breathe out. So just noticing what you feel in your belly when you breathe in and out. And you might breathe in and out faster or slower than I'm moving my breathing ball, and that's totally fine. Just feel your body breathing. Notice what that is like. And we'll take one more together. So you might be starting to notice some similarities and some differences between how mindfulness is shared with adults and how it's shared with young children. So this was a mindful breathing practice, just like we did a mindful breathing practice to start this webinar. But in this practice for children, I used a prop. I used this mini Hoberman sphere, which I call my breathing ball. Um, and that that gives them another anchor to be able to connect with through their senses as they're taking this break to breathe mindfully. And when we instruct a practice like that, I always like to use words like curious and let's do an experiment. One of my favorite things to do for a mindful breathing practice, say like with the breathing ball, is after we've done something really high energy, like a big movement song, I like to say, let's do an experiment and have kiddos put their hands on their heart, just feel into the body, feel what their heartbeat feels like, then do that mindful breathing. So taking the hand from the heart down to the belly and doing a few breaths like that, and then bringing the hand back up to the heart and noticing if anything has changed. And so I'm not going to say things to them like, don't you notice that your heart feels slower? Um, you know, there's but giving the opportunity for them to notice for themselves without really even having to answer, what their physical experience is like and what changed for them by doing this mindful breathing practice. So just one quick note about breathing practices with young kids. There are a lot of resources out there for sharing mindfulness with kids, and a lot of them are different kinds of breathing practices. When you're working with preschool age kids, I really strongly encourage you to focus on things that create awareness around the breath, not things that alter or change the breath in any way. So I would stay away from things where we're counting, breathing in and out for a certain amount of time, or things where we're holding the breath or anything like that. Those are great for slightly older kids, like older elementary, but they can for young kids who haven't really even built like an awareness of just that connection with the breath yet. Trying to manipulate it and change it can be more anxiety producing than kind of kicking in the body's relaxation response, which isn't, That would be the opposite effect of what we would want to have happen. And also, you know, little kids have little bodies, which means they have little young lungs, right? And so the rate that they breathe at is faster than how we as adults breathe, and it's hard to gauge that. So always just be encouraging them to be with their own breath and notice their own experience. So we've talked a bit about what mindfulness is, what kinds of benefits it offers to young children, and we've experienced some mindfulness practices for ourselves. So we're going to wrap up with the how and some of the key principles that we need to keep in mind if we want to share mindfulness with young children. So first and foremost, if you want to be competent in instructing mindfulness to young kids, we have to practice ourselves. So yeah, anybody can use a breathing ball, right? Anybody can use a chime or a singing bowl, and you may get some value out of that. But the way that we approach the practice and the way that we're able to hold space in a room of kids without reactivity and without judgment, that is embodying mindfulness and creating a culture of mindfulness. And that only comes from having your own practice. So start wherever you are. I always tell people, like, the 1 minute of mindful breathing a day that you actually do is way better than the 15 minutes of mindful breathing that you did once and then never did again, because it's very easy to believe that we don't have the time, to practice mindfulness for 15 minutes. And, depending on what your life is like, that can be very, very, very true. So start where you are. And I really recommend checking out this app, Insight Timer. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. It's totally free. Get it for whatever device. And they have access to not only the timer, but more than 60,000 guided meditations and mindfulness practices from all kinds of different wisdom traditions, totally secular, mindfulness-based stress reduction. There's practices for kids on there too. So if something guided is useful to you, that is a really great app to check out. So number one, start with building your own practice. So remember, even when we're sharing mindfulness practice, we have to expect kids to be kids, right? It's unrealistic to expect total silence and total focus all the time, especially if these kinds of practices are new. They might feel a little bit weird to kids. So it's a skill. Mindfulness is a skill, just the same way that, learning to be able to focus on a book all the way from beginning to middle to end, or learning how to rhyme, or learning our colors. We wouldn't expect any child to hear the ABCs one time and then, be able to recognize every single letter on its own. And it's the same with mindfulness. So we just have to expect kids to be kids, and where keep our calm, and where it's appropriate, that we do kind of have to redirect. That's what we do. We just redirect back to the object of focus. So yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Right now, let's notice what it feels like to just let those ideas go and come back to watching the colors change in the candle that we're watching, or whatever the object of focus happens to be um, in that moment. So it's also important to let adults in the room, whether they're teachers or parents or whomever, know that you are comfortable with kids being kids, and that you've got it. You're good. In terms of redirecting them, um, you know, so that parents and other adults don't feel like they need to jump in and like correct bad behavior, or so kids are doing it right or whatever. There's plenty of space for kids to be kids. You've got your practice, you've got your calm, you've got it. And if something is really necessitating an intervention, you're going to let the adult caregiver know that you need their help. We also want to honor the attention spans of young children, so keep your practices short. About 30 seconds to 2 minutes is an age-appropriate and manageable length of time. And when you think about that, you can see, oh my gosh, there are so many places in the daily routine, or in a story time, or whatever, where I can implement something that's 30 seconds to 2 minutes long. And if you happen to get that kind of magic moment where the kids are able to go longer than those 30 seconds, that's great. Go for it, definitely. So when we're sharing mindfulness practice with young kids, we need to keep in mind that they don't have abstract thinking ability. So our instructions need to be really concrete and really literal. So even something like find your breath in your body, like how I instructed you all at the beginning of our practice, that's very abstract. So instead of just saying find your breath in your body, when I did the mindful breathing practice for kids, I brought in these props, that anchors that allow them to connect to the present moment through their sensory experience. That's really what we're doing. We're using the sensory experience to provide kids with an opportunity to be right here, right now, in this present moment, just noticing something as it is without trying to change it. That's mindfulness, and we use the senses to help young kids experience mindfulness. So we had the tactile sensation, right, of the hand on the belly. So there is that tactile anchor there. We also have this visual anchor. So being able to see the ball open and close and as we're breathing in and out and noticing the breath. So there's so many different things that we can use in terms of sensory anchors to help kids connect to the present moment. And I have several videos up on my YouTube page demonstrating this. So that's on your resources handout. I definitely recommend going and checking that out. We've gotten a few demos in our time together here, but there's more out there for you. So there's the breathing ball, there's the sound practice, there's the way that I talk to kids, preschool age kids, about their brains using a little plush animal I call a breathing buddy to help with that. And there's also a practice using a color changing candle as a visual anchor too. So definitely other resources for you guys to check out. Consistency is key. I encourage you to look for a natural opportunity that exists and to embed mindfulness practice into your work with young kids. So let's say, for example, whether it's outreach at some place or whether it's in the library, let's just take story time. So a natural opportunity might be ringing a bell to get everybody's attention. Oh, story time's about to begin, right? And then going from there. So since we have our bell out, this is a great time for us to enjoy a couple mindful moments together, listening to the sound of this bell before we move into our story time or whatever kind of. And you're helping in doing that to move the brain from wherever it's been into a state of calm, which sets kids up for actually being able to learn, remember, be in that learning place for what comes next. This is just one example. It doesn't have to be that. Maybe doing that breathing practice, noticing the change in the body in the middle of the program after something high energy. But what I would encourage you to do is look for a place that you could regularly embed that small bit of mindfulness and do it all the time. Do it in every program. Or every program with this age group, and don't feel like you have to do every single kind of practice that's out there. Pick one or two and just do those. That experience, that repetition, that consistency is really where the changes that affect learning and that affect the brain start to come in. And then you're also really demonstrating for caregivers how they can take that practice outside of the library or the story time as well. So I would like to share with you all another listening practice. Is a different kind of a listening practice. This is a song by Leanne Basson, who is a children's musician. This is from her record Breathe In, and this song is called Be Still. So it's if finding the language is tough, this is a really great song that we can use that instructs a mindfulness practice in and of itself. So, all right, let's all come on down and find a way that we can be comfortable and still in our bodies and just notice what we hear and notice what we feel while we listen to this song. Be still, sit silently. Being still, you will be free. Be still. So remember, the intention of mindfulness practice is to cultivate curiosity about one's own experience in the present moment. So um, this isn't about getting kids to behave. This isn't about getting kids to be good or obey. Um, so we want to be careful with the language that we use and some of the phrasing that we use when we, instruct or lead or offer mindfulness practice. So these are the kinds of phrases that we often use with kids, and there's nothing wrong with these phrases. There are plenty of times when these are absolutely the right phrases to use with kids. Um, Things like, I want you to, I need you to, you have to. Asking questions that sort of lead them towards, what their experience should be like or should have been like. But what I would really encourage people to do is to be aware of how you're speaking and set phrases like this to the side when just for that period while you're leading mindfulness practice with young kids, and try to use phrases that are more emphasizing choice and just asking them to be, or inviting them to be, giving them the opportunity to be with their own experience as it is. So if it feels okay to you're welcome to close your eyes, blah blah blah. It's not going to feel okay to some kids to close their eyes, so allowing choice, that's not only empowering, but it's also it's a way to be trauma informed, which PSA, I'll be talking about trauma informed practices next week. Um, so anyway, words like, I invite you to, let's do an experiment, let's be curious about, let's notice, try to hang out more in that area than in the way of issuing commands. So, good. Okay. So, we're going to have a good amount of time for questions, which I really wanted to make sure of, because I would imagine folks might have some. But before we do that, books can also be really helpful in terms of being a tool that can help us offer mindful moments for kids. So, this is one of my very favorite books that demonstrates that. It's a little board book called Baby Present, and the language is very simple, and it acts as a very child-friendly meditation in and of itself. So I invite you, this will be our last practice of our session together. I invite you once again to scoot forward in the chair and let your legs be uncrossed, feet on the floor. If it feels okay, your eyes can be closed. Mine will be open because I will be reading. I'm not showing pictures or anything like that though. So the object of focus for this practice is just to notice the words, to just hear what you hear, and to feel what you feel. Breathe in, breathe out. You are perfect just as you are, sitting in the here and now. The past is gone. The future is tricky and a long way off. Right now is just right. There is nothing you have to do. There is nowhere you have to go. Feel your belly rise and fall. Present moment, wonderful moment. present moment, wonderful moment, present moment, wonderful moment. If the eyes have been closed, you're invited to softly blink them open. And so I'm going to let you all know that there's lots of ways to connect with me. You know, I'm not great with the social media right now, but I do, you know, reply to my emails and whatnot. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. You can find me at storysongsandstretches.com. As I mentioned, I've got lots and lots of video demonstrations that may be useful to you on my YouTube page. Sorry, I have the wrong date up here somehow, but next week, actually Tuesday, September 1st, also at 10 a.m., is my last webinar in this series, and it will be about trauma-informed universal design in libraries, especially with programming for kids and families. And if you're interested in learning more about building your own mindfulness practice, I have a 4-week online course with Library Juice Academy that starts on September 7th. So you can just go to Library Juice Academy to find out more about that. There's no assignments, no tests or anything like that. It just gives resources, encouragement, guidance, step by step every week to help folks build their own mindfulness practice in a sort of in a way that has like some formalization around it, I guess you could say, some assistance. So with that being said, I'm gonna open up the chat. And Tiffany, feel free to pop in if there's anything that you want to say too. But if folks have questions, please just put them in the chat, and I am more than happy to demo, answer, you know, respond to any questions or concerns you all might have.
Thank you. We will be sending the handout and the recording when we have it posted, and a link to next week's session. So expect those. If we have any comments in the chat, looking kind of quiet so far.
You guys all bought in? Mindfulness and virtual story time tomorrow. Everybody go.
Let's see, one comment.
So someone here says, I really like the glitter jar on the video. Glitter is associated with bright, shiny things, so that mind chaos isn't bad. It just is. You point out something here that's really, it's so important, that's non-judgment, right? The thoughts, we aren't trying to get rid of that stuff. We're not trying to make it go away. There is no clearing the mind. You know, so you're right, you know, things that those thoughts, those plans, those memories, whatever, they just are what they are. And in the video, and I don't have one that I can easily grab, but I like to have a big glitter jar for myself and then little small glitter jars for each kid as well. And yeah, just talking about let's shake up our jars, and our jars are like our minds. Wow, look at how the glitter is really swirling around like that. Sometimes our minds can feel like that, right? All of our thoughts are just swirling around and bumping into each other, and it makes it really hard to see things clearly. So let's just set the jars down and see what happens when we let them be still for a few moments. And we can be still with them, letting our bodies be comfy And then what you'll notice is that the glitter comes down to the bottom of the jar. So we're not trying to get rid of those thoughts, but with stillness, we can let those thoughts relax a little bit, and then we can see more clearly, because now you can see clearly through the water, right? So that's the kind of language that I like to use with the glitter jars. But that's a great visual anchor for being right here, right now, in the present moment. And that one has the added benefit of actually talking a little bit about the brain and the mind in a way that's totally age appropriate. Is there a particular mindfulness activity that is your favorite to use at the end of story time? They're all great. So I usually, the way that I structure my programs anymore, I really, because I'm mostly doing story songs and stretches, and so that has this arc of really energetic, a lot of movement, and then coming down into more mindfulness and stillness. So I whatever mindfulness practice I would pick, whether it is something like being with watching, the visual anchor of like color changing electric candles, or the glitter jars, or listening to sound, maybe transitioning with the song that we listened to, or the singing bowl or something like that. Then I would like to follow that up with a book that really touches on something around social emotional development, and just let families know, our last book is a listening story, so we aren't going to be moving around for this one. This is a chance to get nice and comfy and cozy. You can even cuddle up with your grown-up if that feels good to you, which does happen, and that's such a sweet thing for families to have happen. So books off the top of my head are like um, I Am Enough by Grace Byers. um, uh, It's Tough to Lose Your Balloon by what, Kroshket? I can't remember the last name, sorry. Love the World by Todd Parr. Those kinds of listening stories that are just really calm and chill. I like to kind of end in that way. And there are a few books that I really recommend for that particular kind of content that are included on your handout that you guys got today. You're welcome. How else can I serve you guys today?
Any other questions?